Welcome to this video, which is the first in a three-part series by the UPR Project at BCU, focused on supporting civil society organisations to engage with the UN's Universal Periodic Review, or UPR. This first video will provide an introduction to what the UPR mechanism is and how civil society organisations, or CSOs, can engage with it. Before we get started, let me quickly introduce the UPR project at BCU, which this video series is a part of. The UPR project at BCU is a stream of work within the Centre for Human Rights at Birmingham City University in the UK. The UPR project engages with the Universal Periodic Review mechanism through three core ways: research, education, and practice. First, we have a number of researchers working on the UPR within the Centre for Human Rights, focused on the mechanism itself, but also on specific human rights issues. Second, our work on the UPR feeds directly into our teaching and extracurricular programmes at Birmingham City University, with multiple opportunities available for our students. Third, our practice-based work includes taking part in the UPR pre-sessions, providing capacity building for UPR stakeholders, which includes civil society organisations and national human rights institutions, alongside the filing of stakeholder reports in selected sessions and international and domestic advocacy. This three-part series of videos are part of our study Empowering Civil Society Organisations at the UPR, which is funded by the British Academy and Leverhulme Trust. This novel study has used an online survey and semi-structured interviews to create a significant data set of the experiences of CSOs that engage with the UPR. The aim is to empower civil society organisations, in turn strengthening the domestic implementation of UPR recommendations, seeking to ensure that the UPR meets its mandate to protect and promote human rights on the ground across the world. You can read our report through the link in the video description below. So what is the UPR? The Universal Periodic Review, or UPR, is a mechanism of the United Nations Human Rights Council and was created alongside the Council in 2006. The UPR is an intergovernmental peer review mechanism where all 193 UN member states engage in cyclical reviews every 4.5 years. They are reviewed in terms of their human rights protection and promotion. What's unique about the UPR is that all 193 UN member states have engaged with it since reviews began in 2008. And in November 2022, the fourth cycle of reviews began. And so this means that at the time of this recording, all 193 UN member states have been reviewed at least 3 times. There is a distinct and vital role for civil society organisations to play throughout the UPR, and they form part of what the UPR calls stakeholders. In preparation for the third cycle, the UPR's Secretariat, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, or the OHCHR, elaborated on the definition of a stakeholder, explaining that this includes, inter alia, non-governmental organisations, national human rights institutions, human rights defenders, academic institutions and research institutes, regional organisations, as well as civil society representatives. All reviews are recorded in publicly available documentation on the UN's UPR website, and a link is provided to the website in the video description below. So how does the UPR process work? And importantly, where can CSOs get involved with it? Whilst reviews are cyclical, so there is technically no beginning or end, we can start with the preparation of pre-session documents. These three documents form the basis of each state's UPR. There's the national report, which is prepared by the state under review and should provide an update on the human rights situation since the last cycle. When compiling the national report, the state under review should engage in a national consultation process with relevant stakeholders to better inform its national report, and this includes CSOs. Consider whether the country or countries you work in have engaged CSOs and other stakeholders in this context, and if not, if there's anything you can do to ensure it does in the future. The second report, compiled by the OHCHR, is the compilation of UN information, which summarises information from UN bodies, including treaty bodies, special procedures, entities such as UNAIDS or UN Women, the Secretary General, etc. And the third report is the summary of stakeholders' information, also compiled by the OHCHR. The stakeholder summary document is a key part of the UPR process for civil society organisations to get involved with. CSOs can submit reports on the state under review's human rights record. This is where you can raise significant issues related to the human rights themes that you work on as an organisation, aiming to inform the UPR process generally, inform member state recommendations, and raise awareness on the international stage of human rights violations in particular countries. There's specific guidance from the UN on how stakeholders should structure these reports and what content to include. Our Empowering CSOs report also links to resources for support with this, as well as advice on advocacy strategies. For CSOs engaged with the UPR, it's a good idea to read all three of these reports before the relevant state's UPR to ensure that you are fully informed of the context of the state's review. Just before the review itself takes place, member states can ask questions in advance, which may or may not be addressed by the state under review. CSOs and other stakeholders can keep a track of questions asked by member states that are relevant to their work, and then follow the interactive dialogue to see if the state under review addresses them. The review itself is then held in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, Switzerland, wherein an interactive dialogue takes place between the state under review and other states. As part of this, recommendations are made by UN member and observer states as to how the state under review can better protect and promote human rights. The interactive dialogue and recommendations are recorded in the working group report that is published on each state's UPR webpage. The state under review will then decide to support or note each of the recommendations, which are published via an addendum document. Supported recommendations should be implemented in practice, whereas noted recommendations often signal a rejection, although there are multiple examples of noted recommendations being implemented by different states. The final outcome report of each state's UPR is adopted at a Human Rights Council plenary session, and at this point, ECOSOC accredited stakeholders are able to take the floor to provide general comments on the review. The rest of the cycle is allocated to domestic follow-up and implementation. This stage of the process takes place outside of the scrutiny of the UN and is when the supported recommendations should be implemented by the state under review, with progress on implementation forming the basis of the next cycle of review. Implementing supported recommendations is really important because this is where the positive impact of the UPR is seen for human rights on the ground. This is another key point for CSOs to get involved with the UPR process, as UNHRC Resolution 5.1 says that, as appropriate, states should be supported by other relevant stakeholders with implementation of UPR recommendations. States may also submit a mid-term review, halfway between cycles, updating on their progress, but engagement with this has been limited. Another way that civil society organisations can get involved with the UPR is through the UPR pre-sessions organised by UPR Info. While not officially part of the UPR cycle, they are becoming a de facto core element of the process. Pre-sessions take place around 2 months prior to each state's UPR in the Palais des Nations in Geneva. They provide an opportunity for civil society organisations to sit on a panel and deliver a statement to government delegations and other organisations, as well as the chance to engage in advocacy with UN member states regarding their recommendations. We'd encourage all CSOs who are able to get involved with this. There is often some limited funds available to support some CSOs to attend the pre-sessions, and you can take a look at UPR Info's website for more details. We hope you found this video helpful. Look out for part 2 of this series that focuses on writing SMART recommendations, and part 3 that discusses how CSOs can engage with the implementation of UPR recommendations.